Today on U.S. Farm Report, an update on the surprising seed tech theft story. A major bank says 2014 dairy profits may depend on China. And cotton is making a comeback. Not just the clothes, the crop.
U.S. Farm Report, brought to you by New Holland Equipment. Built smart for the way you farm, work, and live. See your authorized New Holland dealer today. And by the Chevy Silverado, the one you depend on. The one that lasts.
Hello, and welcome to U.S. Farm Report. I'm John Phipps. It has been altogether too easy to just accidentally, on purpose, ignore the grain markets and focus on Christmas stuff the last few weeks. There haven't been any fireworks, but just a steady grind lower that's becoming something similar to an economic toothache. But as much as we grumble about this, it's kind of our turn. Grain buyers are having a much more heartwarming season after all. However, the fact that we've forgotten what bearish markets feel like is not any reason to believe we can't manage them. So frankly, I don't feel guilty about tuning out. The markets will still be trading in January. Time now for the headlines. Here's Al Pell in for Tyne Morgan.
Thank you, John. The U.S. attorney in Iowa says 6 men from China have now been indicted for their alleged involvement in a scheme to steal seed technology. The 6 Chinese nationals all work for a Chinese seed company. U.S. attorney says between spring of 2011 to December of last year, the men conspired to steal trade secrets from Pioneer, Monsanto, and LG Seeds. The defendants are accused of trying to steal parent lines of seed and sneak out of this country. In a separate but similar case, this man is also accused of conspiring to steal seeds from a research facility in Kansas and then pass them to a Chinese delegation that toured the U.S. this year. During a detention hearing in Kansas, the judge ordered the defendant detained in federal custody for the time being. Keeping with China, dairy demand in that country should keep dairy prices strong in 2014. Rabobank says that international dairy commodity prices should stay there at least for the first half of 2014. Rabobank says China's buying has left the rest of the buy side of the international market with less supply to go around. That's keeping the markets tight. ADM announced this week it's staying in Illinois, but will move its global headquarters to Chicago from Decatur. The company wants easier access from a larger hub city. The company says despite not being able to secure special tax incentives from Illinois lawmakers, it will move about 75 executives to Chicago. 2014 could bring a turnaround for cotton acreage. John Robinson, a cotton specialist with Texas A&M, says cotton acres in 2014 could increase to 11 million from the 10.3 million acres that we saw this year. Robinson says prices for corn, sorghum, and wheat sink. Acres should shift into cotton, at least in Texas.
This special first report is brought to you by Pancho Votivo from Bayer Crop Science Seed Growth. Get treated. Get growing.
Each year, an Illinois-based research firm named FIRST analyzes seed results from various seed makers. Thousands of samples are gathered from countless fields in a variety of soil conditions. General Manager Joe Bruce discussed the results of their corn research with Clinton Griffiths.
So let's talk about 2013. Pretty good challenge out there for people in places, but we also saw some pretty good yields in places.
Yeah, this year was a huge challenge with the early season wet conditions, delayed planting. In fact, we had locations that couldn't get planted because the rain just kept persisting. But once we did get things planted, and a lot of locations weren't planted until June, the yield that we saw, I would never have guessed. Just phenomenal yields that came out of our test.
Really? What did you see this year?
Well, we had areas that I didn't expect that did very well were Indiana, central and northern Indiana, the mid-Atlantic area of Pennsylvania, Delaware, Maryland.
Oh, really?
Typically, those areas have more challenging soils, that they're not too far away from a drought whenever the rain stops. But this year, the rain just kept coming at the right time. And in Indiana, for example, we had 2 locations there that phenomenal yields. That we had 40 products in total across all of our tests. 40 products went over 300 bushels per acre.
Wow!
And prior to this year, you may only see 1 or 2 products that would have a 300 bushel yield in it. So just unbelievable. We've never seen this kind of performance.
Unreal. Wow, 300 bushels. What about lows, though? I mean, we had some rough spots out there, too.
We did have some rough spots in areas that would be in northern portion of Missouri, get into east central Kansas. They didn't get as much rain, and their yields got to be in just barely making 100 bushels on average in our tests. And that was pretty tough for them, and just you could tell pollination didn't happen timely and things didn't work out well.
Next weekend, we'll look at the results of soybeans, which the outcome surprised a lot of farmers. And to learn more, check out firstseedtest.com. John?
Thanks, Al. This week, Chris Barron and Mike North join us in the studio to talk markets. Al takes over right after the break.
U.S. Farm Report is brought to you by Corvus Pre-Emergence Corn Herbicide. One pass, zero doubts.
Great harvest.
Definitely. How do you help your crops produce to the fullest? Treat your seeds. Bayer seed treatments help prevent damage caused by pests during early plant development, leading to healthier stands and larger yields. And when it comes to seed treatments, there's only one name to remember.
Pancho Vitivo? Pancho Vitivo.
Get treated and get growing.
A man and his truck, and his son who would rather play computer games than go camping. And a valley, and a river, and the stars, and a new convert. The all-new Chevy Silverado, from one generation to the next, strong for all the roads ahead.
It's a competitive world out there. Dramatic changes are happening in agriculture. Land values are creeping higher. The market is nipping at your tail. Stay ahead of the pack by attending the Top Producer Seminar in downtown Chicago, where you'll learn from the nation's best minds in agribusiness and network with hundreds of like-minded large acre producers. Learn more at topproducerseminar.com.
Trust. Out here, it's that rare combination of reliability, integrity, and the peace of mind that comes with having both. After 20 years of making hitches, the B&W Turnover Ball has become the most trusted gooseneck hitch in the country. Why is that important? Because trust is not only hard to earn, it's hard to find. The Turnover Ball Gooseneck Hitch by B&W. Trusted.
Chris Barron, margin consultant, Mike North, First Capital Ag, our guest here at the round table today. Gentlemen, one of the things I'd like to talk about is the fact that it seems like every contract of, shipment of corn that gets to China, they say they aren't going to take it. And a year ago, they were taking everything and couldn't get enough of it. So I guess my first question is what's happening, and I know we have some people from our department now that's over there trying to figure it out from the United States to work it out, but what is happening there? I'm going to start with you.
Well, it's the export hokey pokey, right? I mean, we put the sales in, we take the sales out. It's really, at the end of the day, more of a political issue than
you think so?
I think. Absolutely. They have a very well subsidized market there. Price of corn interior is $9 to $10 a bushel yet, and they do that to try to fend off inflation in other areas. So for them to bring cheap corn in kind of undermines that process. And in their world, they can find this little gene that doesn't fit into their playbook and cancel the whole load.
So they're using GMO as a way to take care of it. Do you think it's all political? You agree with what he's saying there, or there may be more to it than that?
Yeah, I think that's very much the case. And as farmers, we can watch that give us a little flash in the pan in the market and kind of look at the bigger picture and understand kind of what's going on based on what you're saying. I think it's very true.
Have you really seen that those show up in the markets yet as a reduction? Because corn markets haven't been doing very much, but they've been staying sideways, so it doesn't look like they're doing.
I think just the opposite, actually. I think the reality is that if you watch what's been happening, as they've canceled them, they've gone into other Asian destinations. And those destinations wouldn't necessarily have grabbed for it, but they'd already towed the load all the way to China, and now they have this opportunity to buy corn at a very competitive rate. They're doing it. it's a special price on corn. They're grabbing it and taking advantage of the situation. Now, if China comes back and says later, hey, we really do want that corn now, well, now we start pulling more from the export part of the balance sheet than what we would have initially intended. And we're already at 1 billion bushels of the 1.4 that we're talking about. So as we go forward in the marketing year, which we still have 9 months left in,
yes,
we very well have an opportunity to maybe breach that number and push exports just a little bit higher because of what's going on right now.
Okay, well, while we're still talking about corn, let's talk a little bit about the ethanol use of corn, because ethanol use of corn has actually increased a little bit, has it not?
Yeah, and it's very profitable right now. So, you know, there's definitely it's going to be interesting to see how it shakes out though as we move forward too. That's going to be the challenge.
Yeah, if you look at profitability curve, the spot margins for an ethanol plant are astounding right now. You know, depending on what numbers you look at, anywhere from $1 to $2 a bushel in terms of return to a plant, and that's a great place to find yourself. But as you look further out, those numbers fall off pretty fast. So if we maintain that curve going forward, you know, that speaks well for the ethanol volumes that'll be running through the plant. However, you know, there's this discussion in the backdrop about renewable fuel standard. You know, we saw Harkin come through and say, hey, EPA, will you reconsider? I don't see that happening. But at the end of the day, with the margins where they're at, plants are able to be competitive in the export space. And so if we don't blend it here, we'll just load it on a boat and send it to Brazil.
Now, that actually we're doing quite a bit of that, I guess, right now. And that's good for the ethanol plants, and also using our corn at this point in time. And we have, maybe not in excess, but more corn we had last year at this point in time.
Yeah, no question.
You know, we definitely do. And you know, that's kind of the big concern when you look at where we're at with this huge crop that we have in the bin. As producers, we're carrying a massive amount of bushels. And when we start looking at, okay, we got to start moving these bushels, at what point do we start moving some of this stuff all at the same time, and what does that do to basis? We start moving into the spring, and a lot of us as producers start looking at the quality of that corn, and a lot of the stuff is harvested at higher moistures. It was wetter, you know, you start noticing, boy, we better start moving some of this stuff. If we all start doing some of this at the same time, there's going to be some big basis hits on things. So I think we're going to really need to be paying attention and be on the ball and getting that stuff moved.
When we come back, we're going to talk about soybeans and talk about corn when we return with more U.S. Farm Report in just a moment.
What is your emergency? Need assistance at County Road 61 and Highway 9. Help is on its way.
Clear! There's a better way to jumpstart your soil back to health. Apply Endzone to protect and increase nitrogen efficiency without killing bacteria. Apply Prevent to increase phosphorus availability and reduce fixation. Better yet, use them both to get more from your fertilizer investment and see higher potential yields. Ag Explorer, your prescription for healthy soil.
Corvus Pre-Emergence Corn Herbicide. It's not just consistent, it's your corn-loving, broadleaf weed-killing, grass-crushing, 5.6 fluid ounces per acre. Rock steady, fast-track ticket to One Pass City. Corvus from Bayer. One pass, 2 modes, 0 doubts.
Each day, our planet awakens with signs of opportunity. But with opportunity comes risk. And to manage this risk, the world turns to CME Group. We help farmers lock in future prices. Banks manage interest rate changes. And airlines hedge fuel costs. All so they can manage their risks and move forward. It's simply a matter of following the signs. They all lead here. CME Group, how the world advances.
Growing wheat and barley is serious business, where every acre has to produce not only a quality crop, but a return on investment. Prosaro fungicide from Bayer can help. It's proven to offer powerful activity on leaf and head diseases, improving yield under all types of conditions, thus maximizing profit. Growing with Prosaro, it's like growing money.
Roundtable guests Chris Barron and Mike North. We talked about corn in the first segment. Let's talk a little bit about soybeans at this point in time, because everybody now seems to be looking at South America and see how that bean crop is going to do to compete with us. So what's the situation with soybeans?
Well, right now I think we're seeing some volatility in that market, South American weather, and there's a few other factors that are giving us some up and down movement. Whereas on corn, on the other hand, we've seen more of a kind of a tighter range, not as much, quite as much activity. But I think on the soybean side of things, as you look into next year and you start thinking about next year and you look at your plans, I think there's a lot of farmers out there planning to go to more beans, and you see that with a lot of the companies have a lot more beans. I know there's some companies out there that have their top 4 or 5 varieties booked. I mean, they're totally sold out. So I think there's a lot of intentions out there for a lot of bean acres. But I think when we sit down and we look at the cost of production and we look at gross revenue and we look at what our land cost is and where some of these expenses are, it's going to be really difficult for a lot of those acres to truly end up being planted beans. I think the idea is good and the thought process is there and there's some planning there, but it's going to be real tough for that to follow through.
We've had strong demand for beans. Are we going to be able to maintain that strong demand, though?
Yeah, I think so. There is some discussion about South American weather right now, but I think that what lays in the backdrop as we move closer to their harvest is, are they going to be able to push beans out of the country at a pace that's fast enough to keep up with the demand for it? They ran into that problem last year, and U.S. became the favored origin for a lot of those sales because of it. I think they're going to run into the same problem. So, our tight balance sheet, continues to get a little bit of a squeeze there. If we continue to run those sales out into the Chinese market specifically. But I guess to tag on to what Chris had to say, I think at the end of the day, a lot of this talk of switching to soybeans is a little bit more of an idle conversation than it really is. Because let's face it, we in this country are really good at growing corn. I mean, we walked through the 2012 drought, historical in many of our lifetimes, and we put out a 123 yield. Soybeans from one year to the next, you can get roughly the same growing season and end up with 2 very different results. And on ground that you need to show a certain amount of gross revenue, I think you're going to see a lot of corn ground still come into play. We'll lose some of the cotton in the south, but at the end of the day, this big switch to beans, I think, is a lot of hot air.
You think that's a lot of hot air? You agree with him on that?
Oh,
You're
yeah.
kind of shaking your head.
Yeah, I do. And and mainly too, because when you step back and you look at the cost of production for corn too, that's even really tight. I mean, we're seeing land cost and rents and everything are still up at these high levels with prices that we had in the past couple of years, and it's the only way we're going to get enough revenue to kind of stay in business is going to be to plant
Wheat crop actually, winter wheat crop's actually been doing pretty good this year so far. You think it's going to continue that way? We haven't had any severe weather problems thus far.
The crop went to bed this fall in really good condition. We'll see how it wakes up in the spring. We've had good demand from Brazil based on Argentina's issues. I think wheat, wheat is going to be, in good condition, but I think, prices, we just started to turn the corner even at the end of the week here on wheat price.
But globally, the United States wheat is cheaper than any other wheat in the country or in the world.
Yeah, and mostly for the hard red, that's what's being pursued. When you look at the soft red, we really lack a bid in the Gulf right now for it. And that's why I think you're seeing a little bit of a softer tone to the overall complex, because with the big short position held by the spec crowd, and that largely being in Chicago, you're just experiencing a little softer market. But we could see that turnaround.
Each one of you don't have much time. You got one thing that we need to be watching out for next year.
January report. It's coming out in a couple of weeks. And the reality is that's when we can often see increase in yield. They did their work in December to adjust the demand side. Watch out for more yield in January. Corn and beans both. That could be a sinker.
And figure out what you're going to do with the rest of this 13 crop, because we're all sitting on probably the biggest inventory we've been sitting on in years with not nearly the price opportunity that we've had in the past. So we better figure out what we're going to do with it. And we better manage basis and we better manage flat price. And take what we can get.
When we come back, it's Markets Now here on U.S. Farm Report.
If you're one of the millions of Americans without dental insurance, ask yourself these 3 important questions. 1, Does your company not offer dental insurance? 2, are you self-employed? 3, are you retired? If you answered yes to any of these, it's important that you call Encore Dental today. Encore Dental is real insurance, and your acceptance is guaranteed. You'll receive up to 100% coverage for preventive care and up to 50% on basic and major procedures. Encore Dental can help keep your teeth healthy, which may prevent infections that lead to heart disease and stroke. And with the high cost of procedures, it makes sense to have great coverage. Choose your level of benefits. There are no claim forms to fill out and no waiting for reimbursement. So go ahead, review it for 30 days.
Call 1-800-776-5514. Call now and save an additional 10%.
Call now and save an additional 10%.
Volatile fertilizer and energy prices bring great risk and opportunity. On one hand, you can lock in attractive prices and delivery periods. On the other hand, you could make purchases at exactly the wrong time. Pro Farmer Inputs Monitor gives you the ability to track DAP, MAP, potash, UAN 28 and 32, urea, anhydrous, farm diesel, and LP prices in your crop district. Plus, get specific buying advice, industry news, and market coverage. Subscribe today at inputsmonitor.com.
If it's your kid asking, it's annoying. If it's a billion people across the globe, it's a challenge and responsibility. Farmers feeding the world. It's about agriculture coming together to increase both hunger solutions and food production. Please learn more and give generously.
Markets Now is brought to you by DuPont Pioneer, helping you get the right product on the right acre. Science with service, delivering success.
Markets Now, Chris Barron.
Well, I think there's one thing that I'm going to continue to talk about that I've talked about all year, and I think that's understanding your cost of production to the penny. Averages aren't good enough. The last few years we've had that opportunity. We haven't necessarily had to plan. As a result, as producers, we're sitting with a huge inventory in our bins. Quality may be of concern, it may be an issue, maybe not be an issue, but if you know where your costs are, figure out what your basis opportunity is, figure out what your flat price opportunity is, get these things lined up and get the bushels started moving to town. Once you get your 13 stuff all figured out, then you can focus on 14 without the confusion of the two crops, because they're two different crops. And so once you get 14 figured out down to the penny, then you can start doing the same thing with that one. So,
Markets Now, Mike North.
I think we have to stop thinking about 2013 grain like we're in 2012 and start looking out into 2014. We have a discount market structure in soybeans. Don't be sitting around waiting. The market has to rally in this environment just for you to break even on your storage. So get the sales made, look at some calls. Volatility is cheap right now. Go out into corn, do the exact same thing, capture the carry in the market, remove your price risk. And we're in a time ahead of this January report where the volatility on options is very, very cheap. Start looking at 2014 there also. You may not be happy with the prices, but I assure you $4.50 looks a lot better than $3 if you're waiting and waiting and waiting and end up at next year's harvest with nothing done.
Yeah. We'll be back with more U.S. Farm Report in just a moment.
You see it everywhere nowadays. We call it the yield bump. It's a grower's way of saying you made a good decision. Because when you treat young corn with an early season application of Stratego Yield fungicide, you get stronger stalks, healthier fields, and even higher yields. So get a jump on your yield bump with Stratego Yield Early Season.
The secret to finding more buyers for your cattle is no longer a secret. CattleExchange.com is like no other site. It brings the greater ease of use, detailed information, and searchability found in sites like Cars.com and Autotrader.com to the cattle industry. Upload photos and video to attract more buyers and share greater detail in your listing. Cattle buyers and sellers are connecting in ways they never imagined. Go to www.cattle-exchange.com and discover the secret to better selling.
You want a stronger, healthier, and better yielding corn crop, but what you need can seem overwhelming. Well, it doesn't have to be. Bring the Corn College TV experts to your farm with Farm Journal's Corn College Education Series. Ken Ferry and Missy Bowers share their practical, hands-on advice organized into 4 easy-to-follow topics vital for your crop success. Choose the one DVD you need or order the complete set. It's time to take the next step to a stronger, healthier, and better yielding corn crop. Order Farm Journal's Corn College Education Series today.
I really appreciate this opportunity every week to raise topics I think are important for farmers and rural Americans to consider. And I did have a serious reflection about an unfortunate addition to the recent budget compromise that will make food aid even more inefficient. But as I was getting my thoughts together, I was also, one, listening to my absolute greatest Christmas music playlist ever. 2, I was ruining my appetite for supper with Christmas cookies. And 3, I was watching my Christmas lights come on outside. By the way, blue LED lights really aren't working out. My yard looks like a perpetual traffic accident. Anyway, I decided this weekend just wasn't the time for intricate trade and farm policy minutia. In fact, it may be better spent trying to just let some things go. So I invite you to join me in some holiday inefficiency. That's right, I'm talking about doing only one thing at a time, like listening to a friend or attending a party. Let the emails and text pile up. By not answering, you're probably helping the sender to slow down as well, and he can blame it on you. That counts as a gift in my book. See if you can help someone else find some respite as well. Shovel a walk, shuttle some kids. Pick up your own clothes. Heck, I'm even toying with making my own bed. I mean, how hard could it be? We spend too much time being afraid we are wasting time, as if we're constantly being scored on productivity. But this is exactly the season to let those anxieties wait. Remember the message. Fear not. Good news. Let us know what you think. Send emails to mailbag@usfarmreport.com or call and leave us a voicemail. Coming up in our next half hour, Baxter Black tells us the real meaning of Christmas, and we meet a Tannenbaum farmer. Stay with us. The second half of U.S. Farm Report is coming right up.
U.S. Farm Report is produced and distributed by Farm Journal Television.
Today on U.S. Farm Report, pediatricians weigh in on the raw milk controversy. Meanwhile, the debate over lean, finely textured beef also stays active. And if it's Christmas, it's time for a Baxter Black Yuletide story.
U.S. Farm Report, brought to you by New Holland Equipment. Built smart for the way you farm, work, and live. See your authorized New Holland dealer today. And by the Chevy Silverado, the one you depend on, the one that lasts.
Hello, and welcome to U.S. Farm Report. I'm John Phipps. It's that time of the year for end-of-the-year wrap-ups. I've been printing out my accounting reports for my annual cross-examination at the bank and feeding the data to my tax software as well. While I thought I had a pretty good idea how my vast business empire was functioning, there have been a few surprises. Even modest farms like mine are working with larger numbers. As a result, there is considerable risk of losing track of small financial miscues that can gradually grow into costly headaches. To incentivize my flagging enthusiasm for this tedious task, I decided correcting those mistakes is a lot like finding Waldo and getting paid for it. Let's get started with the headlines. Al Pell is in for Tyne Morgan.
Thank you, John. Major tax changes are on the line for U.S. farmers and ranchers in 2014. If Congress doesn't act, Section 179 will tumble from $500,000 to $25,000. National reporter Tyne Morgan sits down with CPA Paul Nafer to discuss.
All right, Paul, when we're looking at 2014, big changes in store for Section 179. What do we need to be thinking about coming to those changes?
Yeah, next year Section 179 is only $25,000. It's $500,000 this year. We got about a week left in the year. If they're going to make or need to make a farm equipment purchase, do it this year. Don't wait till next year. You can automatically deduct up to $500,000 this year. Next year you might be stuck with $25,000.
Paul, do you think we're going to stay at those $25,000 levels, or do you think Congress will act and we'll have some changes and we'll go back up?
I'm almost sure it's going to go back up. I don't know if it'll be 500, but we won't know probably until November or December of 2014.
Okay.
It's too late then.
So prepare for an entire year of Section 179 down to $25,000.
Yes.
All right. Thanks so much, Paul.
In South Dakota this week, ABC News asked a judge to dismiss a lawsuit brought against the news network. South Dakota-based Beef Products Incorporated is suing ABC over coverages of lean, finely textured beef. ABC News used the controversial name of pink slime in several reports. BPI says the news coverage casts a negative shadow on the company, and the beef product and sales plummeted. As a result, BPI shut down 3 plants and laid off 700 employees. ABC believes it's a matter of free speech. The local judge took the matter under advisement, but with holidays, a ruling is not expected until 2014. And a group of pediatricians is now formally saying no to raw milk. The American Academy of Pediatrics is advising against consumption of raw milk products. In a new policy statement, the AAP advises expectant women, infants, and children to consume only pasteurized milk, cheese, and other milk products. The organization supports a ban on the sale of raw milk in the U.S. Sales are still legal in at least 30 states. Well, that's it for news now. Meteorologist Mike Hoffman joins us now with the national forecast.
We continue to see the driest conditions out west. You can see from central California and Nevada, southern portions of Idaho. That's the area where the drought monitor is worst. However, you'll notice the pockets here. It really depends on exactly where you live, from southwestern Nebraska all the way down into West Texas and eastern New Mexico. There are some pockets of real dry conditions there as well, but only a few dry areas as you head through the eastern half of the country. All right, let's check things out as we head through this week. You'll notice a jet stream, after giving a warm up across the center of the country, is now bringing the cold air back, but it is extremely warm up and down the eastern seaboard as we head through the rest of this weekend. This whole storm system, the trough, continues to move east. Another one dives into the northern plains, and another one starts to dive in as we head toward next weekend. And so you can see, anytime you have this big circulation up around Hudson Bay, at least the northern half of the country is going to be cold, because you just keep having these cold air masses coming south. But if you stay zonal like it is, looks like by next weekend on our computer model here through the southern tier of states, you folks won't be too bad down there, at least most of the time. Let's go day by day then. On Monday, as we start this week, you can see the cold air has overtaken the entire central part of the country. The cold front is all the way to the east coast. So lake effect snow showers and a little bit of snow lingering in New England with that storm system there. Showers, maybe even a thunderstorm in Florida. And you can see another weak system diving through the northern portions of the Rockies. That will bring a little bit of snow out that way as well. Checking out the jet stream, you can see how it's changed. We can get that trough back into the center of the country, another one kind of diving into the Pacific Northwest. On toward Christmas Day we go, and these are weak systems, so we're not talking a major snowstorm here, although the one in the central Rockies could be putting down some decent amounts in the higher elevations anyway. The one coming through the Great Lakes, this is all light snow, shouldn't be a lot of accumulation, but it will whiten up some areas you can see from the western Great Lakes, perhaps some spots across the northern or the central portions of the Plain States. Still chilly weather down into the Gulf Coast region, and you can see the jet stream diving southward into the southwest. There might actually be a little bit of a cutoff there, and then it goes eastward across the Gulf Coast. So that's a pretty cold weather pattern for the eastern two-thirds of the country after this brief warm-up that we've seen. On to Friday we go. You can see the next system coming in with some snows across the northern plains, western Great Lakes, lingering snows in the northeast, maybe a shower or thunder shower in Florida, and also a few showers possible along the Rio Grande there. Jet stream still diving southward into the southern portions of the Plain States. Here's the temperature outlook then for next week, December 29th through January 4th. Above normal in the southeast, below normal temperatures for the Great Lakes and most of the west. Precipitation next week below normal from the central Mississippi Valley throughout most of the southwestern areas, above normal for the southeast and eastern seaboard. 30-day outlook for temperatures, while we're going below normal for the northern half of the plains, as you can see there, above normal for the Gulf Coast and the southwest, and also precipitation looks like above normal with the storm track up the eastern seaboard, so the Great Lakes, same thing, and above normal out in the northern Rockies.
Mike was telling me earlier that you're not on board with the Weather Channel trying to name winter storms.
Most people aren't going along with that. The National Weather Service isn't. So
here's my theory. Why don't we start the idea only we use Klingon names?
Okay.
Winter Storm Galron.
Galron.
I think this will
Has
work.
a ring to it.
Well, I won't see you again before then, but Merry Christmas, Mike, and
Merry Christmas to you. And that's very good.
Spear of the Heartland is next.
U.S. Farm Report is brought to you by Ag Explore. Nurse your soil back to health with the right prescription of N-Zone and Prevent.
For the past 3 years, Corvus has been the fastest growing corn herbicide. Experiences like John Gix help explain why Corvus herbicide has become so popular.
We've had some luck with one pass, but I guess we always had to scout to make sure with our other products that we didn't have any breakthroughs, and then if we did, then we had to go back in and take care of those. And we still scout with the Corvus, but we just haven't had any issues that we had to go back in for rescue treatment.
Not only has Corvus proven to be a successful one-pass program for Gick, but it also helps him manage or prevent weed resistance.
The control that I was getting with my glyphosate was good. I was satisfied with that as well. But with the resistance problems that were coming, we knew we were going to have the issue with that. So having something else that we could go to that was going to give me the same control that I had been experiencing was important.
Great harvest.
Definitely. How do you help your crops produce to the fullest? Treat your seeds. Bayer seed treatments help prevent damage caused by pests during early plant development, leading to healthier stands and larger yields. And when it comes to seed treatments, there's only one name to remember.
Pancho Vitivo? Pancho Vitivo.
Get treated and get growing.
A man and his truck, and his son who would rather play computer games than go camping. And a valley, and a river, and the stars, and a new convert. The all-new Chevy Silverado, from one generation to the next, strong for all the roads ahead.
Spirit of the Heartland is brought to you by the all-new Yamaha Viking side-by-side. Yamaha, real world tough.
From trimming to selling, tree farming is a big job. But for one new farmer, it was more appealing than other crops or animals, mostly because she didn't know the first thing about raising livestock. It's a decision that's spreading joy to those eager to cut their own tree.
We are in Burlington, Kentucky, Meinhardt's Burlington Tree Farm. People will come with 3 or 4 of their friends, family members, or their neighbors, and they'll be caravanning around. It's more of an event to share with the family instead of just another thing on the checklist.
Very hands-on, people involved. It gets a lot of people from the city out here and experiencing the nature and what people do every day to make a living. Cut down a tree, we'll go out and pick it up in the four-wheeler, and then we'll shake out the tree, shake all the dead limbs and stuff out and then bale the tree and tie it on top of their car.
My husband and I bought it in '88, and it was actually a total disaster. An extension office person came out here and was making suggestions as to what we might be able to do, and they mentioned things like pigs, cows, and we didn't think we were up for that. And then they mentioned Christmas trees. We thought, oh, we could do that.
After a tree's cut down, we have to go in and cut out the stump because a lot of diseases can survive in those stumps and hurt the field. So a lot of it's burned out or cut out too. There's a lot of blights and insects and stuff that can cause problems, so it's tough business.
You know, that is, I think, the impediment to people actually getting into this business is that, you know, you're pretty much looking to 7 to 10 years before you have something to harvest. And then, you know, if your business increases or if, you know, there's a natural disaster, which we've had, you know, some pretty bad droughts here in the last few years, you can't fill that hole easily.
Originally there was only two main fields that were pretty big, and she started planting smaller offshoots because a lot of the trees in one field would get cut down or would die, so you'd have to have newer fresh fields where there's not any disease or where the trees haven't been cut.
This is the rewarding part of the process, is seeing some appreciation for your work.
A lot of families that make it their tradition to come out every year, and there's a lot of new people every year.
Our thanks again to Brian Volland of the University of Kentucky, who shot and edited the piece. He captured some great scenes. And speaking of Christmas trees, next week, the second half hour of our show will be our annual Christmas in the Country special. Clinton Griffiths and our own Tyne Morgan will host the show. A fresh blanket of snow and draft horses at a Michigan Christmas tree farm provided the perfect backdrop for holiday stories from across the country. You won't want to miss it. Again, that's next week on U.S. Farm Report. Still to come this week, Baxter Black continues our Christmas theme and shares an unusual perspective on that wonderful night.
Of American farms are still family-owned, which means on the farm, the CEO is usually referred to as Mom, and Mom usually refers to her big farm operation as home. She knows that to raise something right, you can't cut corners.
Ready to go? Yep.
And of all the things you can plant, the most important is a little bit of yourself. Wherever your day takes you, and however it ends, chances are it began with a farmer.
To ensure your seeds become strong stands, give your soil the right preparation before you plant. Improve your growing environment with agronomically designed equipment from Case IH, like the new Ecolo Tiger 875 disc ripper, engineered to manage tough residues and shatter root-limiting compaction for improved nutrient uptake and better stands with more fully developed plants at harvest. The world of farming is changing. Will you be ready? Learn more at caseih.com.
This season on Man vs. Weed, Ethan discovers Caprino Post-Emergence corn herbicide.
Weeds this year, toughest ever.
Caprino has the longest residual of any post, taking on grasses, broadleaf weeds, even glyphosate-resistant weeds all season. Caprino, because out here, it's man versus weed.
And man will emerge victorious.
Caprino, for an amazing end-of-season clean.
It's Christmas on the farm, and Baxter Black has his own thoughts of what Christmas Eve must be like for one overlooked resident.
Whoa. I know you've probably asked yourself, what's Christmas to a cow? You've not? Well, maybe just perchance it got you thinking now. When we march out on Christmas morn like nothing's going on, as Yuletide struck the night before and disappeared by dawn, where plastic sleeves are hanging up around the cabin shed, did visions of protein blocks cavort inside her head? And did she lay awake at night tensed up, anticipating, or in excitement milk her bed by accident while waiting? The cows pretend to be just cows devoid of all intrigues, but really lead a secret life like women's bowling leagues. Did we just miss the mistletoe? Did all the clues elude us? Does she believe in Santa Claus or just Santa Gertrudis? And if we looked, would we see sign of reindeer in the pen? Or would we just convince ourselves the goat got out again? And after we'd all gone to bed, would they join in a hymn and sing that little manger song they learned in Bethlehem? Away in the manger, no crib for a bed, the little Lord Jesus lay down his sweet head. The stars in the sky looked down where he laid. The little Lord Jesus asleep right there in the hay. Well, I guess it don't matter much if cows believe or not. We'll fork her out a flake of hay and head back in a trot to celebrate our Christmas day and all that we espouse. And when we say our dinner grace, we'll thank him for the cows, for the livelihood they give us, and the life we get to share. But do the cows have Christmas cheer? Who knows? But just beware. If you see chicken tracks among the straw and drying chips, you better check suspicious cows for eggnog on their lips. This is Baxter Black from out there.
Baxter will return in 2 weeks. Until then, check out his work online at baxterblack.com. When we come back, Tractor Tales and our Country Church Salute. Please stay with us.
Be ready with proven leadership. Be ready with efficient power. To learn more, visit caseih.com/efficient power.
Clear! There's a better way to jumpstart your soil back to health. Apply Endzone to protect and increase nitrogen efficiency without killing bacteria. Apply Prevent to increase phosphorus availability and reduce fixation. Better yet, use them both to get more from your fertilizer investment and see higher potential yields. Ag Explorer, your prescription for healthy soil.
Corvus Pre-Emergence Corn Herbicide. It's not just consistent, it's your corn-loving, broadleaf weed-killing, grass-crushing, 5.6 fluid ounces per acre, rock-steady, fast-track ticket to One Pass City. Corvus from Bayer. One pass, 2 modes, 0 doubts.
Each day, our planet awakens with signs of opportunity. But with opportunity comes risk. And to manage this risk, the world turns to CME Group. We help farmers lock in future prices. Banks manage interest rate changes. And airlines hedge fuel costs. All so they can manage their risks and move forward. It's simply a matter of following the signs. They all lead here. CME Group, how the world advances.
Growing wheat and barley is serious business, where every acre has to produce not only a quality crop, but a return on investment. Prosaro fungicide from Bayer can help. It's proven to offer powerful activity on leaf and head diseases, improving yield under all types of conditions, thus maximizing profit. Growing with Prosaro, it's like growing money.
Al's here for Tractor Tales. Where are we headed this week?
John, we're headed to Port Hope, Michigan. Now, Harold McTaggart says he has no favorites in his collection of nearly 100 tractors, But this 1944 W6 McCormick needed a little more attention when it arrived.
Would you like to hear it run? They're a pretty nice tractor, and they're made, the engine and the components is mostly the same as an M Farmall. But these are called a standard with the wide front end, and they handle real nice, they drive real nice, and I've got a couple of them. I have a Super W6 somewhere down the line. This is a local tractor, and I've known it for years. And this tractor belonged to a farmer that was a good customer of mine by the name of Robert Witherspoon. He used to use it the last 6 or 7 years. He would blow silage up into his silo with this on a blower. You've seen those, the blowers. And it had a lot of power, and then all of a sudden it broke on him. And he left it set for a long time, and he come in one day and he said, if you want that thing, it's all in pieces. And he said, I'll give you a good price. And he did. And I put it together, and this is what I ended up with, and it's a very nice running tractor. You know, you can fix these tractors, and a lot of people do. And they get so much money in them that you can't afford to buy one. Very nice running tractor. And power-wise, it would be about the same as a narrow front M Farmall. Now, I don't know what else I can tell you. I painted it, and of course I did the engine, put it all back together, and it runs great.
And don't forget, you can find Tractor Tales online at usfarmreport.com or on Facebook. The segments can also be downloaded as podcasts from iTunes. Today's Country Church Salute goes to Two Rivers United Methodist Church in Rock Island, Illinois. Started in 1833, it is the oldest church in the Quad Cities, which borders Illinois and Iowa. The current church was built in 1889. It underwent major renovations both inside and out to help celebrate the 180 years of ministry. Pastors Steve Kettlecamp and Leslie Thomas lead the congregation of 230 people. Our thanks to Larry Dalton for sharing the news of Two Rivers United Methodist Church. And our second church salute takes us to Floyd County, Virginia, where members of White Rock Church of the Brethren are celebrating its 125th anniversary. The church was formerly known as the German Baptist and Dunker Brethren Church. In 1893, construction began on the church. The cornerstone of the building is a large white rock, so the church is aptly named. Reverend Michael Pugh currently leads the church. Thanks to Beverly Simon for telling us about White Rock Church of the Brethren. And as always, we want to learn about your home church as well. Salutes can be sent to the address on the screen. Stay with us now. The mailbag is next.
Corvus Pre-Emergence Corn Herbicide. It's not just consistent, it's your corn-loving, broadleaf weed killing, grass crushing. 5.6 fluid ounces per acre. Rock steady, fast track ticket to One Pass City. Corvus from Bayer. One pass, 2 modes, 0 doubts.
A man. A man and his truck. And his son, who would rather play computer games than go camping. And a valley. And a river. And the stars. And a new convert. The all-new Chevy Silverado, from one generation to the next. Strong for all the roads ahead.
You see it everywhere nowadays. We call it the yield bump. It's a grower's way of saying you made a good decision. Because when you treat young corn with an early season application of Stratego Yield fungicide, you get stronger stalks, healthier fields, and even higher yields. So get a jump on your yield bump with Stratego Yield Early Season.
The Chevy Silverado is the official news gathering vehicle for U.S. Farm Report.
Time now for a weekly look inside the Farm Report mailbag. I received a bunch of comments about my budget priorities, and I will answer more in the future. But one of my own neighbors picked up on a sleeper I had on my list. I must take exception with your proposal to eliminate the stepped-up basis. Many would be forced to sell their farms without a stepped-up basis. How is that a good thing? That's from my buddy Dale English in Paris, Illinois. Dale, you're right. The basis step-up allows people to avoid a lot of taxes, but it strikes me as a blatantly unfair loophole. Here's how this tax expenditure works. If I bought a farm 10 years ago for $3,000 an acre and sold it today for $10,000, I would have to pay capital gains on the appreciation in value over the years of $7,000 an acre. This would apply to other types of assets like stocks too. But if I die today, my heirs could sell the farm immediately with no capital gains because the basis or cost gets reset to the current value when the owner dies. My question is, why? Why should death be a get-out-of-taxes-free card? If you research Internal Revenue Code Section 1014, you won't find a good reason. It's just a tax giveaway that benefits wealthier people. It also costs the Treasury a cool $60 billion with a B dollars a year. So, if balancing the budget is a top priority for most Americans, it's not for me, but for them, I think we should at least start by eliminating tax breaks that have no economic or logical justification. As always, we want to hear from you. Send comments to mailbag@usfarmreport.com or leave us a voicemail at 800-792-4329. For Al and Mike, I'm John Phipps saying thank you for watching U.S. Farm Report. Be sure to join us again next week, and in between, have a Merry Christmas.
U.S. Farm Report is produced and distributed by Farm Journal Television.